It's the most wonderful time of the year. The dawn of a new Overwatch League season is less than 1 week away. As we head closer to the starting line, we must think about what's to come in our future. Something that I usually like to do, as well as the community here on this channel, is create season predictions to build upon the hype and give us something to look back on when the season's over. After skipping a year, today we bring back the annual ATP predictions. This year's season preds will consist of 14 categories. Many are outcomes and awards given out by the league each year, and this year I'm also including my picks for Dennis Hawelka Award and Role Star. Additionally, I like to throw in a couple of my own made-up awards that make for fun talking points. There's no need to explain them right now, you'll understand as we get to them. With that said, let's begin. First on the agenda is the 2023 Grand Finals champions. I'd say there's like 3 to 5 teams possibly in the running, cause I am of the belief that this year will be more wide open than people think. Now, with that said, I still am going with one of the favorites in the San Francisco Shock. Their entire roster is top of the line, brand new, budding Korean talent from the best talent farm in O2 Blast over the last couple of years. That to me makes me feel like their chances are pretty good. The Shock easily, at least in my eyes, have the highest ceiling of any team in the league, and I think you'll see them become more and more confident as the season goes on and they progress. Proper, most importantly, got more of the help that he needs, and I highly suspect that last year's shortcomings will push him past his limits. This team is by no means invincible, and I don't think they'll totally dominate from start to finish, but when the smoke clears, I'd like to think they have a great chance of hoisting up that trophy. On the topic of winners, let's break down my top seeds in the West and East. If you saw my power rankings, then you kind of already know, but I have the Shock taking home the West and the Spark in the East. The Shock, like I just said, are my title favorites, and I also believe they'll just have some really good regular season consistency. Teams like Houston and Atlanta also have good chances here, but I'm going all in on the Shock as a consistent powerhouse. When this roster played together on O2 Blast, they clutched out a lot of close victories, so I'd like to believe the same could happen in the league. The West is simple enough, but the East I'd say is a bit more up for debate. The Spark are probably the favorites because their DPS are insane, and they'll likely be the difference maker in those close matches. Not to mention they do have the good synergy and the correct coaching, but even so, the East is pretty open. Nobody is like out of this world, I'd say. Even though the Spark are good, they are beatable. I'd say that both Seoul teams as well as the Fuel really aren't that far behind, at least on paper. But the Spark definitely feel the most well-rounded, hence why they have the best chance and why I picked them. Their flexibility will be slightly better than the other teams in the East, as everyone basically went with a 5-man roster except for them. The Spark have that extra option at tank, which will probably give them the advantage they need to make that push for the 1 seed. The final pred in the season outcome category is who makes the final 4 of the playoffs, and this is a tough ask for sure. Season 5 had a lot of unexpected outcomes that could end up throwing this year in a loop too, but if I'm going off what I see and what feels right, I'm picking the Shock, cause obviously they're my champions, plus Atlanta Reign and both Texas teams. I feel like Reign and Outlaws are pretty self-explanatory. They're both stacked with superstars at most positions, great flexibility, and insane DPS, and they just feel like they're built for a playoff run, especially with all of their previous success in the playoffs on other teams. The one team on here that could draw some controversy though is the Dallas Fuel. Why would I pick a considerably weaker Dallas team compared to last year? They have a far less reliable backline, and everybody knows that year 3 is usually when a championship contender starts to take a step back. But I don't know, man. Call it a gut feeling if you will, but there has to be at least one surprise team to make it here. It usually happens every single year. And I am gunning for Dallas, a team that many people have kind of already given up on, so I feel like that would be a perfect storybook outcome. They're like this decent team, but nobody expects them to go far, so I'd say that either A, Dallas get the right meta at the right time and make a playoff push, or B, they prove all of the haters wrong thanks to their great trio that's still there, plus excellent coaching. Dallas and the Rush era have consistently overcome doubts and obvious weaknesses. It's worth it to have faith in them until they prove us otherwise. Now for some individual awards though, given out by the league itself. First is the most valuable player. Considering how much I've been gassing up the Shock and the media attention he usually gets, Proper seems like the obvious choice, and if I'm being honest with you, that's probably who the league picks so long as the Shock stay relevant. But for me, that seems a little too obvious and a little boring. Nobody has ever won MVP twice in a row before as well, so my 2023 regular season MVP prediction is Lip. This is maybe a bit more of me wanting him to win, rather than thinking logically, but Lip just feels overdue for an MVP. This man has been snuffed multiple years in a row, despite some insane individual performances, and he's one of those people who takes that kind of stuff personally. He firmly believes that he is the best player in the game, and nobody deserves it more than him. With that kind of chip on his shoulder, with an opportunity to start anew in the West on a great-looking Reign team, Lip could run away with this in perhaps his best year yet. In my opinion, Lip is going to dominate just as hard as last year, if not more, but this time people will seriously come to appreciate it since he's in the more popular region. The West just has more of a spotlight for him to be a part of, so I think he'll be getting gassed up a lot more by the general public. Lip did a lot of insane carries last year, but not enough people were paying attention. If more people in the West actually got to witness his play, they might lose their minds. That's what I'm banking on. My boy deserves an MVP, and this is the year that he finally gets it. But what about the Alarm Rookie of the Year? There really aren't that many rookies in the league this year, and many of the best candidates are all on the potential top-tier Shock, so let's go with the Flex DPS Heesang. This man is arguably not just the best at his position, but the best prospect in general out of contenders this year. It's a safe but realistic choice. This guy could be elite right from the very start. For the moments where Proper isn't killing literally everything in his sight, I think you'll feel his presence pretty well. Echo, Tracer, Genji, Sombra, Hanzo, the man's versatile and is prone for getting a lot of those timely picks at a moment's notice. I think all fans will come to appreciate him as various meta changes happen, and he still ends up being one of the better flex DPS in the league. He's not going to live in Proper shadow like some people believe he will, and I think he's going to stand out in the eyes of the public because of that. Heesang is no joke, man. People sleep on this guy just because of who he's playing next to. Lots of teams would have loved to get their hands on this guy, trust me there, and I think he's going to show us why in a very impressive rookie campaign. Taking a break from the serious talk, we have the very wholesome Dennis Hawelka Award, given to those who show leadership, sportsmanship, giving back to the community, and generally just being a really great person. Last year, Hadi won it for being a great leader and a homie, and I think this year that person will be someone. I for one expected him to win it last year because of how wholesome and energetic he was. It gives me heavy Sparkle vibes, you know? This man knows how to get his team pumped. He's loud, he's proud, and he clearly loves to compete and win with his teammates. He's a great dude who's going to get a lot of attention when Florida end up being really solid this year, so someone feels like a great shout. Time for role stars. I could be here all day explaining things to you, so let's try and run through this. My support role stars are Fielder, Chio, Shu, and Finn. I originally had Twilight here over Finn, but then those Boston rumors surfaced of them kind of being boomed completely, so let's not go that route. I know it's kind of boring to have 3 of the same guys as last year, but it makes sense, right? Fielder, Chio, and Shu are quite possibly the top 3 supports in the entire game on 2 of the best teams in the entire game. Finn, though, I understand he might take some convincing because he definitely still needs to grow, but I'ma just go out and say that he develops into a noticeably better player. He'll crack down on the decision making and improve his hero pool. This guy knows very well that he needs to take that jump if the Shock want to win, and I have a lot of faith in him to do it. I'm banking on that potential, it's as simple as that. Anyway, at DPS, my picks will consist of Proper, Lip, Shy, and Pelican. Lip is my MVP, and Proper's just a god gamer, so no brainers there, I'd say. The other 2 slots, though, they're definitely up for debate. If Gladiators are good enough, Kevster obviously enters this conversation. Cause I don't think Glads will be top tier this year though, I'm not picking him. Shy I think is a good option instead for one, because he could very easily be the best DPS in APAC this year, and the Spark obviously could be the best team over there, so he's going to get a lot of appreciation and recognition, and usually the league likes to pick one player from the East bare minimum to be part of the Roll Stars, so I feel like Shy is a good choice. As for Pelican, he's basically the Shy of the West. This man has been putting out crazy seasons for years now, but has never really gotten the recognition. I think it's time for Pelican to get what he deserves. This guy obviously wants to win a championship desperately, and from the looks of it, he feels pretty locked in and ready to do whatever it takes to make it there. I just have a really good feeling that Pelican plays out of his mind. And finally, the tanks. My picks are Hanbin, Void, Someone, and Fearless. Honestly, tank I'm feeling the least good about. The only tank I believe that has a really good shot is Someone. In my opinion, he might actually transition into the best tank in the league this year. Someone in his second year will be insane. He literally has everything you want as a valuable tank player. He's got the carry potential, a more refined game compared to last year, insane mechanics, and an excellent hero pool. And when Florida end up being near the top this year, yes, I said when, people are going to look back and they'll appreciate the job that he did. The other guys, though, yeah, I really have no clue. Hanbin, I think, is a decent safety pick because Dallas will end up winning games still because of how hard he carries, and I think he very easily could be the best tank in APAC, even if Dallas aren't that good. But in a solo tank situation, we don't know how solid he'll really be, and I kind of feel the same way about Void. He feels like a trustworthy pick. People are low-key sleeping on this man because he almost retired, and the Dynasty in general don't look that great, but he's a really smart player who's been amazing for years now, and he's going to be relied on more than he ever has in his entire career, and because it's Void and how skilled he is, I believe he will carry that burden to the best of his ability and be one of the better, more valuable tank players in the game. Then we have Fearless, just because of his name, his reliability throughout the years, and Houston possibly being really good. He's probably not a terrible option, but I'm a little nervous deep down that he might have more trouble this year because he's got a more selfish backline. I desperately wanted to put Smurf here, but a Boston collapse could be imminent, so I was a little afraid. Honestly, if Boston were to figure something out or Smurf maybe gets a new team, I'd like to say he makes it in over Fearless or maybe Void or Hanbin. For now, though, I guess I'll just go with Fearless and move on to Coach of the Year. I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but it just has to be Krusty this year, right? He's perhaps the greatest coach of all time, and he still hasn't won this thing before. Like, it just feels so wrong. The award itself hasn't been around for that long yet, but this guy is long overdue. Let's just call it how it is. The Shock have been consistently great, year in and year out since he first took the job, and they have made it to 3 grand finals and have posted the best record in the league from 2019 until now. And now here in the present, he could lead his team yet again to one of the best records in the league with a different roster for a 3rd consecutive season. At that point, he's just got to get some credit, right? He is the longest standing coach in the league and is so good at what he does. Please, 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 please give this guy Coach of the Year before I lose my mind. I am literally begging at this point. Anyway, for category number 3, I've got the almighty, useless but fun, ATP awards that don't exist. First will be the Most Improved Player Award. This award goes to a player who showed significant growth compared to their previous season in the league. It could go to someone who goes from bad to good, or maybe a person that was already decent and then took a significant jump. And not gonna lie, there's probably a lot of good candidates this year. Speedley, Stalker, Vigilante, Flora, Mag even. The list goes on and on. My personal selection, though, will be RuPaul of the Florida Mayhem. He was always pretty good on Florida last year, but he was never heavily talked about. He kind of just existed, lived in the shadow of Majet at times, people liked him more. But this is the year when Florida proves to be a true threat, and they'll come to appreciate RuPaul and the more stable backline presence that he provides. This man has star levels of potential. We saw a glimpse of it in 2022 and in the Pro-Am recently. This guy can be a really good flex support in the league. He's such a stable presence, a smart player who makes the timely plays without sacrificing his positioning or making major mistakes. He approaches the game right, and I suspect with a great team like this around him, that he might take the jump. Sometimes people forget that you can still be the most improved even if you were decent beforehand. If you want a more prominent example of like bad to good, maybe you could go with Flora because he was pretty meh last year, and a new chance on Washington could see him return to form. I think there's a lot of possible outcomes here, and it should be a lot of fun to look back at this one, but my pick's RuPaul. On the topic of most improved, we have the most improved team. How this award usually goes is pretty simple. Think of it as a team significantly improving their record compared to the previous year. And if that's the case, it's hard to not go with the Spark. It may seem a little crazy to call a top 4 playoff finisher this, but let's not forget that was a pretty lucky run. The Spark lucked into a good meta at the perfect time. If you look past that at their entire season as a whole, they were insanely inconsistent, and everybody wrote them off by October. They literally had more losses than wins, and were the lowest seed in the playoffs. But 2023 could prove to be a much different story. I myself think that the Spark finish at the top of their region, so they likely double or at least come close to doubling their win total from last year. I'd say that going from 4th place in APAC as a playoff miracle run team to a top tier contender is a pretty big jump. This team is just so much more organized than before, and they're very much in a position to dominate the East while still making a deep playoff run like they did 1 year prior. And unlike last year, we may not be doubting them by the time we get there, but instead calling them a favorite. Now for the final award of this video, the wild card, the one that is extremely open to interpretation, the biggest surprise of the season. This could literally mean anything. It can imply a good thing, a bad thing, players, a team, anything you want. My biggest surprise of this season, though, will be the Dallas Fuel making the Final Four of the playoffs and still being one of the better teams in the league. A lot of people, including myself, are writing them off after losing 3 contributors, and I don't really see a world where they end up defending their championship, but I do see a world where they could get awfully close. Like I said before, Rush-led teams just have this way of figuring things out. They're really good at solving problems and handling adversity. They always find a way to adjust no matter what weaknesses they have. They did it last year, and they did it the year before. I understand this is easily the biggest challenge they have faced yet. There is a lot to overcome, but this isn't their first rodeo. Dallas know what they're doing over there. Rush-led teams just have this way of figuring stuff out. Hanbin, Sparkle, Edison, they're all amazing players still, and I have faith that each and every one of them can figure something out, both in the regular season and the playoffs. There is just no way a team like this is going down without a fight. People are beginning to doubt them. Everyone's writing them off, and I think that's when they're going to make people regret it with a crazy run. In Rush we trust, baby. In Rush we trust. And that's it, my friends. The ATP 2023 predictions are in the books. It'll be really fun to look back at this video someday to see how horribly it aged. Let me know what you think about all this down in the comments below, and feel free to share your own preds as well. I'd love to hear them. If you enjoyed this video, and you want more Overwatch League content just like this, give this video a like, and subscribe to this channel if you're new. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.